programmer, and she did all of the computer work connected with the metabolic profiling over an 8-year period that we did. She was a fabulous computer programmer, so we worked together. And we also had 6 children. At the time she died, they were ages 1.5 to 12.
Wow.
The reason I mentioned her in an article, which I think you're referring to, because she was the first computer programmer to ever work on metabolic profiling, and she made possible many of the discoveries in this field because of her computer work. And yet the simplest molecular profiling device could have easily saved her life. She got a very rare condition, caused her pain one day, and she died that night. If the advances that I'm talking about, which her work helped to make possible and which could already have been in place if we hadn't had the inertia of the medical system, any one of the simplest devices that we devised could have told her what was wrong with her, and she'd have gone to the hospital. But she didn't go. She didn't know how sick she was. So she didn't have access to a surgeon who could have saved her life because she thought she just had a bad stomachache. In fact, she had a fatal disease. So pancreatitis. So in that case, a home-based diagnostic system, or even a medical system which was easy to access, would have saved this woman's life. Instead, she died because it was not known that she needed to be hospitalized. She had a bad stomachache. I said to her in the evening, "You want me to take you to the hospital?" And she says, "No, let's see how I feel in the morning." You realize all the decisions that go in. The emergency room was an hour and a half away. They keep a sick lady who didn't feel good up for several hours, charge her $1,000, and she didn't know she was seriously ill. If she'd had something on her desktop that for 50 cents worth of materials would have told her she was seriously ill, then she'd have gone. That's what the story is. She died because she didn't know something about her health that technology could have told her, but that technology is not there because the older medical paradigm really prevents it from being implemented.
How far along are you in the Institute right now before we can have some test devices with people who are interested in being part of what you're doing?
The problem, pardon me a second, this telephone. Hopefully it'll stop. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. The Institute, we do research. We publish papers. We do things to show how things can be done and to make discoveries to the extent we can. But we don't have the resources to apply these things. We can't go out and build an industry. That requires resources far beyond those that we have available. So although we can do an experiment, and we even did in the 70s, we've done experiments showing, for example, the procedures I was mentioning were diagnostic of many diseases. But it takes a lot of resources to bring these procedures to people in general. It requires industries. Those industries must be built. They must be capitalized. They must build equipment. They must serve large numbers of people so that they can drive the cost of that equipment down to low enough levels that they're available to everyone. They're major industrial activities. And in many ways, these industrial activities are already difficult to do in our country because of the changes that have occurred in our political system. We, for example, have a terrible shortage of energy today, and yet we were once the leading technology country in the world in the production of energy. The reason for that is simply that certain kinds of energy production were, by taxation, regulation, and litigation, pushed out of our country. So industries would need to be built to apply these things, And it's not clear that they could be built in America today because we lack the capital and we have this huge burden of government on our backs that really prevents anyone from doing much of anything new. It's hard to even keep doing what you're doing.
Where in the world are you familiar with where there's more of a free hand at discovery and development and exploration that can be enabled to move into manufacturing with speed and precision quickly?
Well, that's a hard question, and I'm no expert in it. But I noticed, for example, I heard on the radio the other day that there's an insurance company in the United States that is offering or getting ready to offer insurance at much lower rates, medical insurance. But the deal is they pay your transportation to Brazil, where they're operating hospitals at a third the American cost. Maybe Brazil is such a place. India, a lot of people are going to India for ordinary medical care. All the way to India they go because it's cheaper and they can get good care. I think probably in some of these less developed countries where there's more interest in developing industry than there is in taxing it and living on it, are probably better, although I don't know that because the grass is always greener somewhere else.
Sure. What do you think of Mexico? A lot of people
a lot of people, I don't know. I absolutely have no special knowledge about these things. I do know, I know one very fine doctor who's a specialist in an important procedure who was forced out of the United States, and he works in Mexico. And I'm not saying that I sign on to everything that's done over the border. This was a very remarkable man. He went to Mexico, and he was able to practice his profession in Mexico, but not in the United States. On the other hand, it is a underdeveloped country, and although he was able to practice his profession, he was not able to build an institution there that enabled him to expand that practice around the world. He existed, but he was able to work without being arrested, but he was not able to do much more. And when it's fine to have a hero. It's fine to say, oh, that man is a wonderful thing. Isn't it wonderful he can do this wonderful thing? But if it isn't delivered to the hundreds of millions of people in the world who would like to have access to it, then there's a failure. So you have to talk about where in the world could you do the work, and you also have to have a balance between that and places where there's enough capital to and enough free enterprise to expand what you're doing to cover a lot of people. Probably the larger countries that are less developed and have less governmental impediments, which are probably today places like Brazil and India. Well, even it's a terrible paradox. China's a communist country, but we have our industries leaving in tremendous numbers to China because it's actually a better place to do business than it is the United States.
I was just talking with Jim Rogers about that, about his book, A Bull in China.
There's one thing that might interest you. I've read this in magazines. I don't have first-hand knowledge on the numbers, but I've read that as much as 80% of the principal figures in the Chinese government are engineers and scientists.
That's amazing.
In the United States, you know that most of the principal figures in our government are lawyers.
That doesn't surprise me.
But you see, engineers and scientists, they're not superhuman. It doesn't mean they won't make mistakes. They're the least understand what they're doing, whereas these lawyers understand something else, and they haven't been doing too well for us.
So it may be that the paradigm in which a breakthrough in the revolutionizing of 21st century medicine with consumer-based diagnostics and the internet may begin to manifest with the provision for a totally new construct of legal standing. And that with the new structure of legal standing comes the pouring out of a totally new medical industrial complex that is being enabled to do exactly what you're suggesting should be done.
Yeah, well, like most things, most great, and this I'm not saying that we've done